What's up guys, Jayztwocents here, and computing power continues to get more powerful and powerful, and the package continues to get smaller and smaller.
Sure, you can DIY anything, but why do this when you can have this? Available in both 120 and 140 millimeter sizes, the new Prisma fans from Fractal Design feature 6 individually addressable hub-mounted RGB LEDs that are compatible with most motherboard addressable RGB headers. To learn more, click the link in the description below.
Laptops are something that I'm pretty passionate about because I've spent so much time traveling in the past, I spend a lot of time traveling now, and as much as I do love my Microsoft Surface, and I use it a lot, you can't game on it, you can't edit on it, and having to carry, believe it or not, I carried 2 different laptops for a while. I used to carry that to be lightweight, but then I had a gaming laptop that I could set up in the hotel if I wanted to game, and I thought it's just stupid to carry 2 laptops for that reason. So that's why I'm taking a look today at the new Razer Blade 15. This is the advanced model in Mercury White. We're gonna see how well this thing can perform while gaming. One of the things I love about the Razer's construction is they are, in my opinion, the absolute benchmark that everyone should achieve to be when it comes to chassis construction. Because I mean, it's aluminum unibody, which gives it just a rough, or a amount of rigidity that you just don't get with other manufacturers. You take it out of the bag and it just feels solid in your hand. That's because it is a solid construction unibody with a cover on, or aluminum with cover on the bottom. We'll take a look at the inside. So you could have the best hardware sitting in a crappy chassis. It's gonna take away from the entire experience of having a durable, rugged, mobile solution for gaming / productivity work. And the nice thing is, because this is the Mercury White, even if it were the black one, it's not embarrassing. This is just, I mean, I'd hate to even say it has that Apple feel, but let's face it, Apple has always been very good in the aesthetics department, not necessarily the best in terms of value and usability for a lot of people. But that's a whole nother discussion that's gonna be 100% subjective, so we won't even touch that. But the fact that this has the nice raw aluminum look makes me happy, because if you're taking it in and out of your bag, if you have something that's anodized in black or scratches, this is gonna hide a lot of that. And I tend to be really rough on my mobile equipment because of the fact that, like I said, I travel a lot. It gets banged, it gets bumped, and it's just gonna hide scuffs and scratches. So that's why I opted for the Mercury White. So anyway, here are the specs on this guy, and it's kind of funny. We're in this in-between kind of a generation gap right now, where 8th gen 8750H, which has been like the dominant CPU platform for notebooks for about the last 6 months or so. 6 cores, 12 threads, we've looked at it in the past in several other laptops. But this has a 2070 Max-Q from NVIDIA. Now you can start speccing this up to a 9th gen 9750H, I believe is the model that was just announced. So there's gonna be kind of an overlap period where you've got 8th gen and 9th gen availability. I think as the 8th gen becomes no longer available, then it'll just switch to 9th gen. But you can get it in the advanced chassis up to a 2080 Max-Q. Starts at 2060, which is a full board or a full-blown GPU die. The 2070 and 2080 are the Max-Q variants. Now I chose the 2070 because I felt that this is gonna be a better middle ground, which will keep the costs a little bit more reasonable, where you know the 2080 Max-Q is gonna give you the best overall performance in terms of gaming. But what happens when you kind of shoot for that middle ground, and we're gonna see kind of where we land there. Now what makes this sort of an amazing productivity and gaming laptop is not just the hardware that's in there. It does have 16 gigabytes of DDR4 SODIMM, 2667 modules, which are upgradable. So they're not soldered in there. You can switch, go up to 32 gigs, possibly even 64 if you find dual 32 gig SODIMMs. I'm not sure if those exist, but I'll probably end up doing that. I'll probably end up upgrading this to 32 gigs of RAM. Same thing with the storage though. This only has a 512 gigabyte SSD in here. I'm gonna upgrade this to either a 1 terabyte or a 2 terabyte, just so I don't have to deal with having external drives with me. So I can put more than a few games on here without filling it up. I kind of feel like Razer's always sort of a little bit on the low end in terms of max compatibility with storage, but at least it's upgradable. But what I started to say, and I cut my own self off, and now I'm digressing back to myself to digress to where I started to digress, is the panel. This is a 144 Hertz IPS 1080p panel. So none of that 4K squished down to 15.6 inches, which would be ridiculous. Manufacturers do it. In fact, you can get this one actually in an OLED 4K panel with HDR, but I feel like 4K at this form factor does me no good. I would rather have the smooth, the low response time, high refresh rate for gaming, while we still have IPS color accuracy and have 100% sRGB. So I'm actually using my trusty iFixit kit here, which my wife got for me for Father's Day a couple years back. I will try to remember to put my Amazon link down below for this kit, because people ask me all the time, Jay, where did you get that kit? And I always forget to put the link down there, but it will be my Amazon affiliate link. So full disclosure, I do get a little bit of support if you buy through that link. So that's why I try to remember to put that down there. But I've also got this guy, and this isn't sponsored, this is me, we paid for this. We also have this guy here, which has all the little tools and stuff for prying apart plastic and all that, so that we don't damage anything. So I just thought I'd show that, because every time I use this kit, people ask me, where'd you get that? What is it? So as you can see, we've got fans right here dedicated for both the GPU, which I believe might be this side, and the CPU, which I believe is this side. Bringing air in through the bottom and exhaust it out the back. We've got our heat sinks right here, and this is the direction that the air flows. Here's our RAM, as you can see, 100% serviceable. It looks like these are Samsung SODIMMs. As I said, 8 gigabytes per stick. Upgradable, as you can see. The only problem is to upgrade this one, you've sort of got a ribbon cable in the way. So that would make me a little nervous if I were, say, inexperienced at working on laptops. As a new person, I would be concerned about that, so you'd want to be very careful. It does connect right here. And then here is where your M.2 drive is. And then as you can see, we got a big old battery. In fact, here's the Cmos battery right here. It's actually a 1220 size battery. That way, if you ever need to clear your Cmos, kind of like we showed you in the past. Hey, look, the computer's on right now. See, the fans are turning. Anyway, I'm all touching stuff as it's going. You can pop that battery out and clear your Cmos if you need to. So, all right, let's go and get this back on, and then let's start actually doing some gaming on this. So Razer Synapse is kind of like your hub where you're gonna control everything going on with your computer, at least the Razer functionality built in here. But you can see I've got the main keys here set to white and the F row set to red. And the nice function too here is that when you push the function key, it actually turns off all the lighting and actually illuminates the function key independently. So that's kind of neat. So this is also where you can go in here and disable functions too. Like in gaming mode, you can go in here and disable the Windows key, Alt-Tab, Alt-F4. We can also go in here performance. This is where I said you can have increased graphics power, a balanced, or an increased processor power. And then you have your factory fan curve. And as you can see, it brings with gaming performance, the fans up way high. You set the maximum refresh rate of your panel. You can manually set the fans if you want. So there's a lot of functionality here inside of Synapse, including macro control. So our GPU is currently idling at 46C, which makes sense. It's got that small fan on it that's very, very quiet. It's barely moving air at idle because the system is not hot. That is a perfectly reasonable temperature at idle. If we go in here and you look, we can do unlock voltage control. Let's see if that works when we restart. I don't think it will. Yeah, so we don't get voltage control, but we do get core clock as well as memory clock that we can play with, but you cannot play with the fan curve. So you can overclock the graphics card just a little bit. So let's go ahead and go into some Battlefield 5. And the reason why we're gonna do that is this is, after all, an RTX GPU. So we wanna see how well this can handle it in a mobile edition. So now sitting in the menu at Battlefield 5, it is rendering that background with all this blur. That's a pretty good amount of stress on the GPU. You can see we're sitting at 68C, 98% utilization of the GPU in the menu, running at 1560 megahertz. Now it is a Max-Q version, so it's not gonna be going to the 1900 megahertz you might be used to seeing on the desktop GPU. Our CPU is also showing an average of about 50% use, but our temperatures and stuff in a laptop is gonna get warmer. And as you can tell by the acoustics, those fans have their work cut out for them. But so far our temperatures are staying very, very reasonable where I'd expect them to be. I do not know what the actual maximum temperature of Max-Q is gonna be, so I'm curious as to where this sort of balances out. But remember, in laptop conditions, you are sacrificing acoustics for sure. But in terms of our settings, here is where we are. Everything is on Ultra. This is maxed. With the exception of ray tracing, I have it set to medium. I do not have DLSS on because it looked fuzzy when we tested it earlier. We can play around with that once we're in the map. But let's go ahead and get ourselves into a game here, and let's see how this looks. Now this isn't exactly the most reflective map in the game, but what we're gonna look at right now is just overall performance. This is DLSS off, and this is ray tracing on medium. I'm hearing the gunfires. I did hit him. Ah! Explosions! All right, let's go ahead and set like the advanced stuff to like high. Not a whole lot of difference. I just get a medal for spawning in. I mean, this is so playable. This is pretty awesome.
I hate how those grenades don't do shit.
They do, watch. See?
Oh, nice. Just blatant ray tracing.
It's like unapologetically RTX. All right, so this is Metro Exodus here, the very beginning when you're in the sewer, and I think there's about to be a spider crawling across my face or something here. Everything is set to max. Exodus uses ray tracing for global illumination, which is how light is bouncing and shadows and all that sort of stuff. So we are actually getting pretty good FPS right here. It's like you've got to remind yourself you're on a laptop because it's kind of crazy. In terms of the FPS and stuff, this is good. Sit down. But now I'm out of bullets. So here's what the actual thermal print looks like of the laptop itself. The hottest point on here, which looks like it's going to be obviously right where the monitor meets the chassis, is about 46°C. You can tell they obviously have, you can see where the fans are on the sides because that's where it's coolest. You've got heat sort of being channeled through the middle because that's where the heat pipes are as well. But you can see where you put your palms is about 35°C. The trackpad is 34°C. And then this side over here is about 35.5 to 36°C. So that's kind of crazy. You can see how a little bit of the heat seems to be escaping the side right there though. You can kind of see where the laptop's been sitting on the table. If we take a look at the back as well, you can see it's the very same sort of a heat print on there, where it's the very center that's the hottest. And looks like the hottest point back here is about 50 degrees right in the very center of the chassis. So yeah, if you're kind of wondering where the heat is directed on this, you can see that where you put your hands, although warm, I mean, that's certainly warm, it's not unbearable, like I've experienced in the past. Like the Pro got really, really, really hot right here. So if you're wondering whether or not the Razer Blade 15 is any decent at gaming, as you can see, it does a really good job of it. I'm a bit surprised at how well the 2070 actually stacks up versus the 2080 Max-Q in games. We were seeing over 60 FPS in pretty much every scenario with high and ultra settings and even DXR turned on, both in Exodus and Battlefield 5. And the reason why we show you those is these are kind of like what the worst case scenarios are going to be, so you know that if you turn off some of those features or reduce some of those settings, the temperature is going to go up even more. Now the acoustics while it's gaming, we kind of talked about it for a second. I have Heaven just kind of going on a loop right here. It's sitting at 74°C, 97% utilized on the GPU. GPU dropped about 100 megahertz as we reached those temperatures, so it's bouncing between 1400 and 1500 depending on the scene. I mean, I have desktops I've built that can't come anywhere near this level of performance. But remember, it is an Intel 6-core, 12-thread CPU that has 16 gigabytes of memory, as well as a 2070 Max-Q. So this definitely is higher than a lot of laptop specs. Now the downside here, and I'm gonna go ahead and exit this so we can let this thing quiet down a little bit here. The downside is that it's definitely pricey. If you go to the website and take a look at the various configurations, your price can range about $15.99 and up. That definitely is a bit of a premium, kind of a boutique price, but at the very least, at the end of the day, what you're getting with it is a fully unibodied aluminum chassis that does a pretty good job at rejecting heat, and you get a very decent screen with it, and you can configure it. What you could also do technically if you wanted is you could configure it with some lesser hardware, and then it is upgradable in the future. So by lesser hardware, I mean storage options as well as your memory. So you can kind of configure that in the future if you want to. But the sound is also surprisingly good. One of my biggest complaints with the laptops is, and I've said this a million times, I'm gonna say it again. Ever since buying my Surface, my Microsoft Surface, it has the best speakers I have ever heard in a laptop. I'm talking big form factor and tiny thin like MacBook Air level of form factor, which is kind of what the Surface is. Once I heard the sound that comes out of that, and it's a rear firing, which means it bounces off of the screen and back at you. After hearing how good that sounds, I have told manufacturers of laptops over and over, you have no excuse for bad sound. So at least with the price point that this is coming in at, you are getting direct fire speakers that fire right up at you, and they are full. You don't feel like you're just getting this tin can sound like you're listening to it through an aluminum can held up to your ear. It actually has full rich sound, which is good to see. I wish it was a little bit louder though. But for most people, I think you might end up just wearing headphones anyway. I don't. I actually don't wear headphones very often, so that's one of those things that I would notice. I would want louder speakers to kind of overpower some of the ambient noise that comes from the chassis and the fans once you are gaming on this and putting it under any sort of load. But that's it. You guys tell me what you think of the Razer Blade 15. Razer is definitely one of those companies that puts a lot into their R&D. They're a bit on the pricier side, but at least I feel like you get something for that price. And if you're anyone that has traveled as much as I have in the past, you could certainly appreciate the amount of robust, durable quality that this chassis has. So guys, tell me what you think in the comments down below. If there's another laptop you think we should take a look at in the future, I'd be more than willing to do it. And yeah, so you can tell me that down below or head on over to Twitter. This is like the worst outro ever. What I'm trying to say is, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. The sound goes through that still, but if I double it up like that, no, the sound only goes through, no. How about now? All right, we got a video to make. Better GP performance when it comes to not muting your damn phone because you're an amateur, Jay.